Hi, you got it, friend. I will start off by saying that I did misspeak in my original video that's linked here. And I said that we were 4D beings in a 3D reality, and that is incorrect. I accidentally just mixed it up and flipped it around, but that can bring me into expanding on this. So, we are 3D beings experiencing a 4D reality. So we are 3D because of the fact that we are limited to forward, backward, side to side, up and down, right? And we do those very well. We're not affected by them. And what I mean by we're not affected by them is simply that, yes, we are under the pressure of gravity. And yes, we are affected whenever we go up to high heights. But if we are just sitting still, if we're sitting currently where we are and like not doing anything, there isn't really a force that is affecting us. Like, we are used to the way gravity feels. It does not affect us on the earth, and that is what is pulling us down, or what is theorized to be pulling us down. And I say that because there are recent discoveries of a whole bunch of other stuff. But anyways, so gravity is pulling down on us, but it is not affecting us. Like, we are still able to move against gravity. We can still go up in the air. We can still do things like that. And we have somewhat of a control over the 3D aspects and directions of our realm. However, the 4D, which houses time as a direction, we don't have a control over that. We only experience that in one direction, and it is still based in our 3D reality. The one direction that we experience it in is just the one direction of the Earth moving around the sun and also rotating. So we're really experiencing it in circles, basically. So in a 2D reality, or a reality where we were 2D creatures experiencing a 4D reality, the movement of time would just look like this, but it would only move in one direction. So it would move that way around the sun. Now, it could obviously come back around this way whenever we're seeing it from the sun, but that would just look basically like it going back and forth on just an axis. So we would experience time just as a movement of really like in one direction, but I guess a cycle of back and forth. But whenever we're experiencing it as three-dimensional beings, so we're 3D beings, we have touch, we have all the directions that I've talked about. Say this is the sun, we're constantly experiencing it going around in a circle, right? And so we can see an example of like consciousness expanding through this by we used to think that we lived on a flat earth that was the center of the universe, so we didn't move. What is not moving? That's 1D. So 1D is just a point. It's just a simple point. It doesn't move. There's nothing that's done to it. There's nothing that expands from it. But 2D becomes a line, so it's where 2 points can go back and forth. There's 2 directions, right? Then 3D becomes where you can move in multiple directions. 4D is then being able to move outside of just the normal directions of 3D, which we hypothesize is where time comes from. But as we have expanded and we've realized the Earth isn't flat, it's not the center of the universe, it actually goes around the sun. We thought that the sun's gravitational pull is what held us in place, and we do orbit the sun because of the gravitational pull, but then dark matter, or just what is holding us still in space, actually is not holding us in one place. The sun is actually moving as well, and our entire galaxy is orbiting a black hole at the center of the galaxy. So even though I've shown you what we experience it as in a 3D way, it actually would look something more like a spiral, but not even a spiral that just goes within itself, a spiral that moves in more of a cone shape, because of the fact that our universe is constantly expanding, and as we orbit the sun, and then the sun orbits the black hole at the center of the universe, or however that works, we're also constantly moving through space because space is constantly expanding. So what we're actually seeing is more of an outward spiral, kind of like a tornado. So, and this is just my theory, again, to go see my qualifications on this, which are not any real professional qualifications. You can go watch the original video, but in my opinion, we could see something that would resemble this, or maybe these two things combined together, to understand what it would look like from a 4D perspective on time's impact on us as 3D beings. Now, so to answer the second part of this and to expand on what we talked about yesterday, there are 2 specific types of multiverses that we're talking about, or that I'm talking about here. One is going to be a parallel universe, where you have a universe that is adjacent to yours that moves in a complementary direction. So we talked about how in CIA unclassified or declassified documents, there are evidence that history has a frequency. So every date, every time, every place in time has a specific frequency. So when we look at that, then we know that our planet, and we also know that our planet has a frequency. So really all of existence has some type of frequency. So you would be looking at a reality that starts off on a complementary frequency. And again, if you know more about this than me, please feel free to expand and elaborate. This is, again, I'm an amateur, and this is just my theories and gatherings. But anyway, so a parallel universe would move in the same direction, same evolving of a frequency. So if your frequency went up by 200 hertz, or however we're like measuring actual existence frequency and not sound frequency, then whenever it moves up 200, the parallel universe would also move in the same direction, 200. But you would be running next to each other like railroad tracks, because there would never be a point where you would intersect. You would not want those to intersect. The other type of multiverse is going to be ones that you see in like quantum immortality, quantum unaliving theory, which was talked about here, and talked about in my other video. So those are going to be the ones that do intersect or branch off of each other. The main difference is that in the parallel universe, you have another universe that has it is the center of itself, if that makes sense. So it's not going to have an impact on other universes, and other universes are not going to have an impact on it. It's independent, it's by itself, it's alone. It is going through the same exact laws of reality and expansion that we would be experiencing. However, ones that are going to be like more decision based, where every decision I make branches off into a new reality and there's infinite different possibilities, those are going to be ones where it's more person based or person signified. It's not going to be independent. It's going to completely depend on our decisions, which is why I said I felt like if there was a multiverse like that, it would have to be housed in the 5D, because there would be so much going on that there would be a paradox where basically you would have, I was talking with a friend about this earlier today, and a work friend, and he said, he used the word like Earth Prime. And that's sort of what I was saying last night about how if we had a multiverse that you were able to do, like anything could happen, like any decision I made branched off and every possibility was out there, and it had infinite possibilities and infinite universes, you'd eventually reach a paradox where one universe would have no other possibilities. And that can't exist if there is another universe that has infinite possibilities. Those two things cannot exist at the same time. They would cancel each other out, they would null each other out, and there would be a prime Earth where all things were happening, and that would be kind of like what ours would be. However, if you moved it up and moved it to a dimension where, like the 5D, which is where we might hypothesize that consciousness comes from, some people have said that, some people have been very against that. Okay, so but if it was all housed there, then there would be a possibility that we could have a select few universes. There may even be infinite universes here, but they couldn't be infinite possibilities branched off one person, if that makes sense. So you would have to have them grounded in a 3D reality that is independent on their own. It could not be dependent on other realities at all. Now, to finally answer the second part of this question about, like, why is it so improbable that there would be another us in those universes, you have to think about the multitude of decisions that were made so that you exist, and so that I exist, and so that you're watching my video, and so that you're on TikTok, and all of the different possibilities that happened and what made them happen. And some of those possibilities were extremely improbable on their own. They were just flukes by themselves, okay? And so that's like 1 in a million chances, 1 in a thousand chances. So many things happen to lead up to this moment of you watching this video or you doing your everyday life, okay? All of that happened under the impact of the 3D realm, us orbiting the sun, evolution going the way that it did. If you have a parallel universe that is completely independent by itself, it is not touching ours at all, and it's still moving along in a frequency. So say that we're just connected by frequency and that's it. That's what makes them a parallel universe. The likelihood of every single thing happening the same exact way in that universe that is completely independent and not attached to ours at all, that would lead to you existing, is next to impossible. There is such a small chance that every little thing would happen the same exact way, or even in a similar way. But then, if it happens in an exact way or a very similar way, then you start getting in danger of having universes that would intersect, universes that become too close together that they may fall in on each other, or two may combine, which could be what things like the Mandela effect are. At the end of the day, though, a parallel universe would not be one of those Mandela effect universes, because parallel means they would never intersect. I am running out of time, but if you would like a separate video on the two specific quantum theories that I talked about here, I'm more than happy to do it. But to summarize, it basically just means that consciousness never dies, and that it moves on from one universe to another, to another, to another. Just because you end in this universe does not mean you end in others, and that's what these types of universes would be.